What's up, A to Z Sports Live on this Thursday. I think this is going to be a great show, Jack Gentry, because we've got press conferences to talk about the Titans introduce the new offensive and defensive coordinators under new head coach Brian Callahan. So the first opportunity for us to get to know defensive coordinator Denard Wilson and offensive coordinator Nick Holtz. And my goodness, these two men could not be more polar opposite. And what does that mean for Brian Callahan? What does that mean for us as a show, as a company, as a media outlet covering the Titans? I think it gives us a lot of things to dissect, to peel back through. We've got video on video here for today's show. We had 4 clips to play, 2 of each guy. Now I've got 3 clips of each person, so 6 total clips there, Jack, because I think overall very informative press conference about who these coordinators and coaches are, what they mean for the system overall, and really the entire staff as it's come together over the last couple of days. And so, Jack, we're here to talk about it all. We'll discuss Denard Wilson. We'll discuss Nick Holtz, what makes them polar opposites. I have been kicking around analogies to come up for the head coach offensive coordinator relationship for about 16 hours now, and I think I've got 2 that I really, really like. So, Jack, I'm going to see how you feel about that later in the show. And it is Thursday, which means the Magic Bucket. That's why Jack is wearing some Derrick Henry eye black, and that's why I have a necktie off to my side, getting ready to show and teach and coach Jack how to tie later on before the Magic Bucket. So, Jack, welcome in. Hope you've had a good week. Let's get this thing rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. See some comments about the eye black already rolling in. It's difficult to draw a perfect cross by yourself in a mirror, by the way. I don't encourage y'all trying it. I know that y'all all have jobs to show up for. Thankfully, mine lets me paint my face Derrick Henry style. So that's what's going on with the cross. But while we're starting the show and y'all are trickling in the chat, I know a lot of y'all have opinions on these different coordinators the Titans are hiring, or have hired, I should say. We got to get these likes up. I'm only seeing 7 likes on Facebook. What's going on in here? We need to bump those numbers up. Let's get to 25 at least, and we'll continue to go throughout the chat. Look, we got to share the show if we're watching Facebook. Share it to your Titans Facebook groups. I know all of y'all have opinions. Y'all are talking in them. Y'all are constantly sending stuff in there. I see y'all sending stuff in there. So you can't hide from me. Let's share that show in those groups. If we're watching on YouTube, let's turn our notifications on. Tap that bell icon near the top of your screen, because just like yesterday, you don't want to miss out on an update with some of these new hires. It's fun to learn more about these guys, and we'll get into what we learned from them in a little bit here. But make sure you're updated by turning your notifications on YouTube. Finally, if you're watching on Twitch, text that Twitch link to your Titans text groups. Anybody who wants to learn more about these guys or kind of dive deeper into some of their comments from yesterday, we're going to do that all show long here. So text that Twitch link around, and Austin, let's get the show on the road.
Yep, let's do it officially. Welcome into A to Z Sports, powered as always by the BetMGM app. I'm Austin Stanley. He is Jack Gentry of our Tighten Up podcast, and we are Nashville's on-demand sports network, going live weekday mornings at 8 Central Time on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Links to the show segment by segment on our Twitter X timeline. And also make sure you hit us up on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more great Titans content. We got to thank our sponsors because they make it happen for us and they help out all of you, like Wilson County Hyundai. WilsonCountyHyundai.com is where to go to get your new ride. The Bone and Joint Institute, boneandjointtn.org, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Farm Bureau Health Plans. Get better with Farm Bureau Health Plans at fbhp.com/ATOZ. And Krebs Kubota, an elite Kubota dealer with 3 great locations across the mid-state in Columbia, Franklin, and in Murfreesboro. They are online at KrebsKubota.com. So, Jack, we had almost a full hour of press conference video between Brian Callahan, the new head coach, who sat up there and introduced and took questions with both his new offensive coordinator, Denard Wilson, and also with his new offensive coordinator, Nick Holtz. Jack, I'm going to go ahead and get the first clip out of the way and set the table with the first question that new defensive coordinator Denard Wilson was asked about his philosophy of defense, what his scheme is. Is he a 4-3 guy? Is he a 3-4 guy? People want to know. And here's new Titans defensive coordinator Denard Wilson.
You know, about football, it's not about scheme. It's about the players, right? So we have to figure out what they do well, and then we'll put the scheme around them, all right, to allow their talents to flourish. I could tell you this about the scheme, all right? And I learned this a long time ago. General George Patton said this. Nobody ever defended anything successful. You're going to attack and attack some more. We're going to be attacking defense. We're going to be violent in our approach, all right? We're going to be smart. We're going to be intelligent. We're never going to compromise for competing. And that's the style of brand of football that we're going to play around here.
So you mentioned the attacking part of it, so I would imagine blitzing will be heavy. You look at your background, whether it's Bowles, Greg Williams, like how much did that influence what you plan to do here?
Well, just like anything, you learn from the people that you've been around. And obviously I've been around a lot of great coordinators. So a lot of things that they do is entrenched in my being. A lot of the philosophies they've had, I believe in. So we're going to blitz, but educate. It's going to be there at the right time. It's just not going to be reckless. We're going to play coverage. We're going to play man-to-man. We're going to be multiple in everything we do, all right, in terms of our fronts, any of those things. So we'll be versatile, all right. We'll present problems to offenses, all right, on how we approach it, and, we'll go from there.
Woo! I mean, man, like Denard Wilson.
Yeah.
Like, get snatch, strap up the shoulder pads, snap your chin straps up, pull them tight up here, and let's go run through a wall for that guy. And so there's a couple things, Jack, and I see some comments in the chat that I'll pull up now of just people reacting to that. And I heard him say, he was making a point. Like that reminds me of Nick Saban. he kind of talked like Nick Saban in the way he made a point, scanned the crowd, and followed it up with an I. And so I'm just going to go through and read some comments. Brad says, I love his mentality. Justin says, Wilson was on fire. I like what I heard. Phil says, love this dude. Titans Kyle says, damn, I like Wilson. Jason's right, because Brian Callahan was looking around during that entire press conference like, yep, this is my guy. Jason nailed it. Brian Callahan was very proud of that hire right there. Trey says, no compromise from competing LFG. Curtis says, damn, I like that. Jared says, enjoy it while it lasts. Denard Wilson will be a head coach soon. Darren says, big dog talk. I like it. Good quote from Jason. Patrick says, the way Denard sounds, hopefully the Titans are going to have a nasty defense like in 1999. And so then you see Taylor brings up Coach Wilson and Rand have some of the similar cadence when speaking. So that a big time first impression by Denard Wilson. Jack, what was your first impression of that one quote from Denard Wilson?
Just how confident he was in what he wants to do here. Like, there's a lot of unknown he's taking on here and not as much talent as he had in Baltimore at his disposal. So for him to sound this confident and go up there and say, hey, we're going to do so many different things and we're going to do them all well. We're not going to be a one-trick pony defense. We're going to compete. We're going to hit you in the mouth. I mean, that's like you said, I want to play for that guy if I'm a defensive player in the NFL. And just from what you've heard from his former players, they wish he still stuck around in Baltimore. Like Patrick Queen wanted him to stay. A bunch of those guys in the secondary are going to miss having him around. So it's a massive hire for the Titans. But, we liked this hire on paper before we heard him say a word. Now that we have heard him speak, my God, I love this guy. And you're absolutely right. He's, leader. He sounds like a leader. He sounds like a guy that can rally a group, galvanize a group, and go out and achieve a common goal. That's what the Titans need on the defensive side of the ball. Shane Bowen, defensive side of the ball, I should say. Shane Bowen, at times his defenses looked great. At times they didn't. But I don't think the Titans fans ever heard him speak like we saw Denard Wilson speak yesterday. Like that sounds, it's an outside dog to me. I saw Darius say he's a dog. He's not just a dog. He's an outside dog. You don't bring that dog inside because he'll dirty
all dogs. All dogs should be couch dogs, in my opinion. Right? Like all
he'll
dogs
dirty up your house.
He'll
He'll rub his paws all over your carpet in your house, not his own house. He'll come in your house and do it. Like he's not a lap dog that you're just going to sit and pet. He's an outside dog. If you get too close, he's going to bite you. That's what I love about Denard Wilson.
So yeah, Denard Wilson absolutely sold everybody on himself. And you mentioned Eagles players are missing him. Ravens players are missing him. He got a bunch of interviews. And so I'll play why Denard Wilson on why he chose the Titans.
Well, places. You interviewed, I think, 4 or 5 places.
Talking to Denard.
Denard, yeah. Why was this and Brian the right fit for you?
Well, it's the same thing. First of all, I've always admired the Titans organization. Followed this organization when they were in Houston. had a lot of people that I've worked with that come from the organization. And when I got here, I was already excited about that, right? And then when I met Brian and I met I met the way he is, the way he presents himself, the way he wants this team to be connected, right? The core values in terms of what he believes in as a person, in terms of having good people around him, having friendships, and also grinding and working together. I admired that about him. I had a relationship with Rand already. When we were young coming up, Rand Callahan and he was a pro scout, and I was a young coach. And we had numerous conversations just, during those days of, hey, when we get to this point, this is how we would want to do it. And we've always been in contact and always admired each other on the way each other work. And so it was a natural fit. And I'm happy to be here. I'm learning about the organization, being here, and I'm excited to go to work.
And so I heard Rand Carthon talk with the OTP with Rhett Bryan, Mike Keith, Ramon Foster, and Dave McGinnis after the Senior Bowl. And Rand told that story about he and Denard Wilson's background together and the fact that they were up for the same job in Atlanta as a pro scout. And Denard was the number one choice for the Falcons for that role, but Denard took another job in, I believe, Chicago, and Rand got that opportunity in Atlanta because Denard went the coaching route rather than the scouting route. And so they've always been connected since then, back in their early coaching or front office careers. And so they have kept in touch. And this is something that Brian Callahan talked about it. Like, I just met this guy throughout the process. This is not somebody I've worked with, but you see the dude and you hear the guy talk and you know what his defenses are. And that has to give Titans fans a ton of confidence in what they have as a new defensive coordinator.
Yeah, no doubt. He knocked the press conference out of the ballpark. I mean, he knocked it out of the city. Like hearing him talk about what he wants his defense to look like is great. But when you start paying homage to the Titans and the Oilers and some of the legends and stuff like that, like that's extra brownie points for Titans fans. Now, what does it mean for Sundays? Nothing. But it's a guy that everybody can get behind, I believe, at the very least. And that's a personality that I think the Titans have been missing in their coaching staff, right? Like Vrabel is an aggressive coach, but he's not going to give you it at the podium, and he doesn't have to as long as you win on Sundays. But I think having a guy like that, who and a team at the end of the day is a reflection upon their coaches and the coaching staff. And if the defense looks anything like Denard Wilson sounds, the Titans are going to be in good hands.
Yeah, agree. All right, so let's get the chat more involved already. Yuri says this means corners won't be playing 10 yards off the ball anymore. I saw some others say no more cushion on 3rd and 3 from the corners. And look, we got to see the personnel is still a problem, right? And a lot of that reason of why they were playing so deep is because you didn't want undrafted free agent cornerback getting smoked on 3rd and 3 for a touchdown for 60 yards because he's playing too aggressive. But I do like overall what's being commented here. But let's get you guys involved with this question. What's one word to describe Titans DC Denard Wilson following his press conference? What is one word to describe Titans defensive coordinator Denard Wilson following his press conference? We'll get to your comments here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch here shortly. But first, going to tell everybody about our great friends at Krebs Kubota. If you need a piece of equipment for your projects around your home, your property, or your business, Krebs Kubota is the only place you should go. They have the best equipment in the industry and the best warranties in the industry because they are tagged an elite Kubota dealer. That's a big time benefit for you guys, the customers across Middle Tennessee. And with their 3 locations, as they've grown across the mid-state over their 18 years of serving you, they've added Franklin and Murfreesboro to go along with the OG store of Krebs Kubota in Columbia. They make sure that customer service is on the forefront of their goals and objectives every day to make you comfortable with your purchase or you're comfortable with your rental for your equipment, for whatever those projects are, because you're using a lot of power, a lot of force, a lot of energy, and you want to make sure that you can do that the right way, whether it's a new mower for that tricky yard that you've got coming up this spring, a new trimmer, or something big. If you've got some land in the county and you need Krebs Kubota to help you out, they can do that. Check them out online at KrebsKubota.com.
Check these guys out online, betmgm.com, the king of sportsbooks. While football season just ended, there's plenty of stuff going on. to get some skin in the game if you're looking to do that. And if you're looking to do that on a new sports book, make sure you plug in our bonus code A to Z Sports to receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets. March Madness is right around the corner. Spring training's coming up. College baseball starts this weekend. You can get in on all of that at BetMGM. So don't forget to download the app and use our bonus code ATOZ Sports.
Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 or older. Tennessee only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligible requirements. First online rule money wager only. Rewards issued non-droppable bonus. Specs expire 7 days. And for problem game sport, call Tennessee Redline 800-889-9789. We ask, what's one word to describe new Titans defensive coordinator Denard Wilson in the chat? We do need more likes. We're better where likes than where we were when Jack called you guys out earlier, but we need more likes on the show. So Jack, I will send you to the comment section on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Let's see what they got. One word to describe Denard Wilson after that press conference yesterday.
Chat looks good so far today, starting strong with some of these words. I'm going to get to as many of you as I can, but we're going to start with Jay on YouTube, who says assertive, and I totally agree. Intense from Nick, another great word. Nasty, says Rashid. The devil is in the details on defense. Denard Wilson's going to be all over it, I believe. Richie says solid. Stephen King, like we were talking about earlier, says dog. Mikey, ready. He does seem ready for this opportunity. Alpha, says Lucas. Definitely an alpha. Leader from Jason. Aggressive from Scott. Hopeful from IR Hoshi, a Titans fan's perspective there. Yuri says fiery. Brock says smart. Conviction from Brad. Him from Darren, love that. Confident from Steven, totally agree. Tall Texan agrees. Needed from Caleb. Focused from Andre. Another intense. We've got refreshing, sharp, mega hyped from Danny Whitson. Too confidence from Chandler and CJ. Potential from Sean. Iron from John. Him from Jared. Luman says questionable. Confidence from Biggie. Competent from Phil. Energized, enthusiastic. Methodical, aggressive, expectant, confident, convincing. Love all of these words. Love them all.
Great.
Like every one of those words was great.
Pulse coming in from Michael Kennedy. Tenacious from Marco. Very impressive overall. So, Jack, what is your one word to describe Denard Wilson, new Titans defensive coordinator?
Yeah, I'm going to go calculated. I think he's a calculated guy, and listening to what he said at the press conference, very prepared for that press conference, and handled every question like a pro. But deeper than that, let's talk football. Denard Wilson was calculated in his approach in Baltimore, and I know he didn't run the entire defense up there, but he had a lot to do with it. And I think coming from a system like they ran in Baltimore is going to help Tennessee because the Ravens and the Titans did things similarly on defense, at least pressure-wise, right? Like the blitz percentage in Baltimore was 21.9, and Tennessee was 22.0. So right there, essentially even in blitz percentage. But what happened in Baltimore? Well, they got to the quarterback and sacked him 60 times. Titans just 45, middle of the road. Baltimore led the NFL in sacks. So when you hear him say, you know what, we're going to send pressure. We're going to send it at the right time, though. We're going to be calculated in our decisions. That's what they were in Baltimore. Like, they didn't always pressure the quarterback. They didn't always hurry him up. But when they did heat him up, they took him to the ground. And if they didn't take him to the ground, they forced a takeaway, which is something they also led the NFL in last year. So seeing how that worked in Baltimore with the right personnel group is something that he can bring to Tennessee. Like, you don't have to be Brian Flores and blitz 70% of the game. Mm-hmm. You can do it a fourth of the game and still lead the NFL in sacks and still force takeaways on the back end and still create opportunities for those defensive backs that you have back there, which hopefully get upgraded through free agency and the draft this offseason. So I think that I think that Denard Wilson is a very calculated guy. It seems like he has his plan. He's ready to execute it. Now he just needs to find the right guys to plug in the right holes on the defensive side of the football.
Yeah, absolutely. I think his attitude and everything that we've described him as is exactly what we were excited to see. But personnel is still an issue, as IR brings up on YouTube. Personnel still a problem with the Titans defense, but they've got the money and they've got some draft picks to try to go fix that right now. So I'm going to play, before I get to my one word on Denard Wilson, I'm going to play one more clip on Brian Callahan talking about what he saw in Denard Wilson and why he thought he was the right fit for his defensive coordinator / head coach of the Titans defense?
That's, to me, was the most important part schematically. The other part of it was the person. As you guys get to know Denard, as I've got to know Denard, is great energy, really positive, good to be around. He's a guy that I like sitting next to, and I hired a lot of the people on the staff with that in mind. Is that they're guys that I want to go to work with every day, and I hope that they, as a staff, want to work together themselves. And I think that your team feels that as well. So when your staff is connected and you want to be around them, hopefully the locker room feels that as they come into the building with us. But at the end of the day, they're guys that I like being around and present a lot of positive traits, both in the schematic portion and the relationship portion, which to me are equally as important when you're building a staff.
So, I mean, everything that Brian Callahan said about Denard Wilson and everything that Denard Wilson said about how he's going to approach this job for the first time in his career make you feel on board. I tweeted my thoughts on new Titans DC, Denard Wilson. Yes, absolutely yes. That was summing up my emotions right after that press conference. But Jack, my one word is primed. I think Denard Wilson is primed up for this opportunity in his NFL coaching career, because this guy has been under a lot of great defensive minds. He's been in a lot of different organizations. He's seen it done different ways. And now he is prepared to have his own defense, and it's going to be for the Tennessee Titans. And that's a phenomenal thing for this organization. I'll put up his resume right here of where all he's been. He said he got his start with Jeff Fisher with the Rams. So he knows a lot about and understands what Jeff Fisher meant to the Oilers and Titans organization, and has been a part of that with the Rams, both in St. Louis and in LA. He was under Todd Bowles with the Jets. He was under a lot of really good coaches with the Philadelphia Eagles before all those guys got hired to be head coaches. And then under the Ravens, Mike McDonald, D coordinator, and under John Harbaugh as the head coach, that Denard Wilson's primed and ready to go for this opportunity. He's never really had his chance to run his own defense, but this is it. And I'm excited to see what he's going to do with it. I think all the Titans defensive players that we know are going to be a part of this defense moving forward have to come away from their opening conversation with Denard Wilson or just watching that press conference. I'm like, yeah, I'll play for this dude. I'm all in on this guy. This guy feels ready to lead me to where we want to be, and not be on the couch in January watching the playoffs instead of being back in the playoffs.
Yeah, and another really cool part about it is it wasn't just the Titans that saw something in this guy, right? Like, he had interviews with the Rams, the Packers, two perennial postseason teams, and then a second interview with the Giants lined up. But the Titans swooped in on him and knew what they had in him and said, you know what, let's make this official. Let's put a ring on this thing. Yeah,
and name the organizations that you just listed that also wanted Denard Wilson as defensive coordinator.
The Rams, the Packers, and the Giants.
What do what do all three of them have in common, though?
Now, I don't know what they all have in common. I know what the Rams and the Packers have in common, and that's that they're both pretty successful. The Giants don't really fit that bill.
Offensive-minded head coach. Offensive-minded head coach wanted Denard Wilson to be their defensive coordinator.
You're right.
Which totally means right. Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, and Brian Daboll all are looking at Denard Wilson and say, yeah, I want that guy on my team because I don't want to play him anymore. What's another thing they have in common with him? NFC. He spent a couple times with the Eagles, right, where those teams were seeing the Eagles wreak havoc on their NFC, and then he got out and went to the AFC with the Ravens. And like, oh God, the Ravens were too good this year. I need Denard Wilson on my squad. And so you've add the Titans into that mix, and you've got four offensive-minded head coaches who were trying to go get Denard Wilson to lead their defense. I think that's a big deal. And so real quick, Sean Gill says interview doesn't mean wanted. And I mean, I get what you're saying there, but from what's been discussed about Denard Wilson is that he was a very wanted man in a lot of different areas in this defensive coordinator cycle. And so you're talking about Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur, guys who have been to NFC championship games, Sean McVay winning a Super Bowl, been to another and lost. Those quality head coaches. Then you have Brian Daboll, who I believe was a coach of the year somewhat recently, and then Brian Callahan, new head coach. So I do believe that he was wanted. The Titans had to move fast on getting him to say yes, rather than McVay or up in Green Bay with LaFleur.
Yeah, and the Packers and the Rams are known for what they can do on the offensive side of the football. I think that Denard Wilson made a good move in coming to Tennessee, where their identity for the last 2 decades has been on the defensive side of the football mostly, right? It's stopping the run, it's forcing turnovers, getting to the quarterback, it's making plays, in crunch time situations. And I think because the Titans' identity, caters towards the defensive side of the ball, unlike some of these other teams, he's going to get a ton of shine, and he's going to get a ton of love if he has a good defense that works here. What does that do? Fast tracks him for another head coaching job as soon as he proves that he can run and call a defense at an elite level in the NFL, which I believe he's capable of. Now, this is the caveat, with the right players. How do they go out and get the right players? It's nice to have Denard Wilson back there who's seen, different groups of talent, especially in Baltimore, and how those certain types work in that defense. So I think he has an idea of what he wants. Now the Titans just have to go out and find him.
Yeah, and I see Rashid saying Rand knew who he wanted, just like Brian knew who he wanted, and then followed up with it. They came together. And I think that's what we are seeing about this coaching staff, is that there is a mix of guys who have worked previously with Brian Callahan, along with guys that Rand Carthon has known from the past too. And and I didn't pull the clip from Denard Wilson. I could have pulled all 35 minutes of Denard Wilson and played that, and people would have been jacked up, just having a conversation like we're doing, right? But he talked about all the different coaches on the defensive staff that Denard has worked with. So it's almost like Brian Callahan brought in Denard Wilson and said, okay, Denard, let's work together. Who are guys on your list that you want on your defensive staff? And let's bring in the right fits. And then so Denard Wilson has been able to put together, it's almost like it's 2 coaching staffs, right? Mm-hmm. That it's like a defensive staff and an offensive staff, and the head coach is letting Denard be the head coach of the defense and run his own business, which I think is a great way for that to work and to set up moving forward. So we've talked about one, right? Because the title of today's show is Titans coordinators couldn't be more opposite, and what it means for Brian Callahan. So all this great stuff that we've said about Denard Wilson over the last 27 minutes. Curtis says, LOL, so is Holtz about to be the complete opposite? Well, we'll get to that. We'll play some Nick Holtz video and get what you guys feel and think about him as the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans under Brian Callahan. But first, the Bone and Joint Institute can help you out whenever you have an injury in life. Injuries suck. We all hate them. They're a massive inconvenience, and you either have to take time out of your schedule to go get it dealt with, or you don't, and you just let it linger and it becomes worse. Well, check out the Bone and Joint Institute, because they'll make that process a lot easier for you, because they have all the resources and their experts under one roof in Franklin, Tennessee, right off I-65. So if you're in Davidson, Williamson County, or any surrounding counties, that is the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care, and they will take care of you, whether it's you, son or daughter, a youth sports injury, whatever that might be. The Bone and Joint Institute can take care of you. Check them out and book an appointment online. It's very easy at boneandjointtn.org.
If you're going to get into sports betting, or you're looking to switch it up in sports betting, do it the right way. Do it with BetMGM. They're the pros. BetMGM.com. They've got boosted parlay features. They've got odds boosts all the time, and they've got a great bonus code going on right now. A to Z Sports. Plug that sucker in, and you'll get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses. No sweat first bet. If it misses, they've got you covered. They've got your back. Start off hot. Start off in the green by plugging in our bonus code A to Z Sports. Get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets only at BetMGM.com.
All right, so a lot of great stuff talking about Denard Wilson. Now let's get into Titans' new offensive coordinator, Nick Holtz. To kick this off, we'll hear Brian Callahan introducing his high school friend that we know, and Brian Callahan addressed it immediately, but what Callahan is planning to do with Nick Holtz as his offensive coordinator.
Really excited about the addition of Nick, both for me as a head coach and what he can bring in the offensive coordinator role, which is a little different than what maybe you're used to around here. Having an offensive head coach with a that's calling the plays, with an offensive coordinator by title that doesn't call the plays. It's a setup I'm trying to emulate from how we were set up in Cincinnati with myself and Zach Taylor. It's a system that I know is important, and I know that it works. And so Nick's job. He'll get more into the details of it, but most of it is to make sure that the offensive staff and the offensive players and the offensive scheme keeps running in all the moments that I'm not available to be there, particularly during the course of the week. There's a preparation part of it that's critically important to me. And so very important hire. There's nobody more deserving for it, and I'm incredibly excited to have him on this staff. You'll see he's been around a lot of head coaches, a lot of different schemes, a lot of different ways of thinking and doing business on an offensive coaching staff, and it's going to provide us a lot of advantages as we move forward in the game planning issues that start to come up when you get going.
So to start off, like, I do think for those two guys who went to high school together, high school teammates, lifelong friends, they've only coached together for 1 year. It was when the 1 year that Callahan was the quarterback's coach of the Raiders, I believe in 2018 with Derek Carr. Nick Holtz was there, but that's the only year they've worked together professionally since their high school days. So I do understand the cool factor of anybody sitting and watching this show. You have that person in mind from your high school or college days that you're like, it would be so much fun to work with this person every day. And you guys think you do a great job. You see things the same way, and you think you'd be able to elevate some type of company to where they need to be with your skill sets and your relationship. So I do understand and appreciate that. I know I've got that person in mind for what I would be my Nick Holtz or my Brian Callahan sitting next to me. So, but let's get to the Nick Holtz part of this, because Nick Holtz was asked a question about his offensive philosophy, and then we saw what this relationship is going to be like between a head coach and an offensive coordinator.
To your attack on offense, like, are you a more go with the flow, take what they give you guy, or you were like, this is what we're going to do this week, and this is what we're going to do?
You know, I think there's more probably a question for him as the play caller, but I think we see it systematically of we want to run good plays into good looks, right? We kind of want to have the chalk last where we're not going, they made us hot here, we did do this. So that's kind of, but I guess I kind of defer to him too of how he wants to see it and build the offense that way.
Yeah, there's a time and a place where you try to dictate pace, tempo. There's another time where maybe you are taking what the defense gives you, where maybe you've called a play action shot, you're trying to take one down the field, they do a good job covering it, you take the check down for 10 yards. That's a little bit of taking what they give you. We are certainly going to try to dictate the terms on offense. That is always going to be our goal. But within being able to dictate terms, you want to be able to have the mindset, particularly the quarterback position, really affects more than anybody else, is knowing when to take the easy throw, when to take the completion versus when to be aggressive. And so that's probably the best way I can say it, is that we'll do everything we can to dictate terms, tempo, style of play, but ultimately we'll be smart about when and where we attack. And when we don't have those options, what do we do next? What's our answer? And that's a quarterback issue more than anybody, but we'll ultimately want to be efficient when we don't have the ability to dictate to a defense.
So look, I think that's an interesting clip. And like, I see some people say, he gives off the I have no idea what I'm doing feel here. I don't know about that. That's probably too strong. Jerry says he has no clue what's going on. And Curtis says, oof, not a good look if Callie had to talk for him already. And it's not Brian Callahan. Yeah, this is Nick Holtz deferring to the head coach about a question on his philosophy on being aggressive or taking what the defense gives you, which is a fair question. But like, already the dynamic feels like, look, this is Brian Callahan's offense. I'm here to help out. And I did see somebody say, if this Titan, here it is, Brandon, it says, so if the offense sucks, you blame Brian Callahan.
Correct.
Exactly. And so, Jack, I mentioned right before the show officially started that I was working through some analogies on what this Brian Callahan, Nick Holtz relationship is. And the first thing that came to my mind was Brian Callahan, head chef, Nick Holtz, sous chef. And I honestly don't think Nick Holtz is a sous chef at this point. Nick Holtz is not in charge of the operations on game day, like on, Valentine's Day night, the big night, right? Last night for every restaurant, bougie restaurant in Nashville on date night, the head chef makes sure Valentine's Day night is not a flop, not the sous chef. The head chef is in charge of that, right? So Nick Holtz isn't even a sous chef. And then I was thinking, is Nick Holtz a nanny? Like, is where the parent has to go do other things and you need the nanny to help? And I was like, no, I think that's disrespectful to nannies. And then I landed on two analogies, Jack. Nick Holtz is either Dwight Schrute or he's chamomile tea. I don't know which one I like better. If Brian Callahan is the regional manager, Nick Holtz is the assistant to the regional manager. That really isn't even a real title. It's just something to make somebody feel better about themselves. And they're just doing things to appease the real boss. Or he's the chamomile tea to go along. If you drink coffee, if you drink tea, sometimes you need coffee, sometimes you need tea. Both coffee and chamomile tea are good. They're just meant for different purposes. So I don't know which analogy you like better for Nick Holtz. Is he Dwight Schrute, assistant to the regional manager of Brian Callahan? Or is he chamomile tea that you just use for a different purpose?
Yeah, so mine would be, I think he gives vice principal energy, right? Like he's not going to call the shots. He's not going to be the one handing out the punishments or, dictating salaries, but he's going to be the guy who does all the behind the scenes work. Like he's going to be in there on the chalkboard, like he said. He's going to be in there in film. He's going to help Will Levis in this offense grow mentally while Callahan puts the plan together and they figure out how to execute it. Like in your comparison, you called him a sous chef. I think he's more of an expo. I think that Callahan's in the kitchen and he's cooking, and Holtz is going to be the guy who takes the hot dish, runs it to the table. Everyone eats, everyone's happy. That's what I see from Nick Holtz, and it's not necessarily a bad thing that he's like this, right? Because just back to your kitchen analogy, you don't need too many cooks in the kitchen. You need a guy who clearly has control, and you need everyone else, like championship teams do, to play their roles perfectly, to maximize themselves within their role without overstepping. I think that Callahan knows he has that in Holtz, and that's a guy that he can trust to not try and railroad him or not try and take over when things are bad or not be a guy that kind of goes against the grain. I think that Holtz and Callahan are going to be able to bounce ideas off of each other because they think in similar ways. They have experience working together, and they obviously have ties all the way back to high school. So I think that Callahan, and a lot of people are saying, oh, well, it's a buddy hire. He hired his friend. You got to remember, this is Brian Callahan's first opportunity as a head coach in the NFL. Like, he's not going to just hire his buddies and sit around and go get drinks on Friday at happy hour with them. He's going to hire the guys who give him the best chance of becoming a head coach for a very long time here. And you know what? If it doesn't work out here, to still have somebody else, still have teams that believe in him outside of this, and to make his own hires and bring his own coaching staff in, guys that he can trust. So generational wealth is on the line here for Brian Callahan. I don't think he just hired his friend for the sake of hiring his friend. Like, this is a guy who is going to be able to collaborate with Callahan, going to be able to do some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, get his hands a little dirty, where Callahan is going to have a bigger picture in mind and stay on top of that himself. So while a lot of people are going to bash Holtz for not, being the Denard Wilson in the press conference, I think it's needed to have a personality like this on the offensive side of the ball.
Okay. All right. So I like your vice principal analogy. I was also, while you said that, I also thought, is it substitute teacher? Is that, Brian Callahan's the teacher, and he's like, hey, I have to go do this. So here's the plan for the day. Here's the curriculum. Just set this up and run it how I want it to while I have to go do this.
You just really hope that your teacher doesn't get sick during the season, right? Like, if that happens, then that classroom is going to go wild, and you're not going to pass many kids at the end of the day. So
yeah,
as long as the teacher stays healthy, Brian Callahan, then I don't think there's a lot to worry about with Nick Holtz.
Yeah. And so look, so Nick says, so Callahan is Michael Scott. Like, hey, I don't think he's got the same, insecurities that Michael Scott has, but Michael Scott was the most successful regional manager that Dunder Mifflin ever had. Like, the reason why Dunder Mifflin succeeded was because Michael Scott was successful in when it comes to the sales. And so I did see this other comment, to not go full disrespectful. Dwight Schrute was important. And Chris says, I agree with the Dwight Schrute comparison. Dwight in his own right was a hell of a salesman and made Michael Scott look good as far as sales go. And then somebody else commented that whenever stuff hit the fan, Dwight was ready to be there to support his boss, Michael Scott. So I think while it's funny and it sounds disrespectful, I understand, Jack, with what you're saying is like Brian Callahan might need this person to fill this role. And so I want to play another clip of Nick Holtz because, look, we can poke fun and make analogies all we want about the role or lack of role that he might have under Brian Callahan. But there is something about Nick Holtz that makes him valuable, and it's about what Nick Holtz had to say here.
We've had a few discussions about, hey, we've done this, and that's, we'll both walk back to our offices, go back to a separate way, and then come back and revisit it. But there's a lot of similarities. I think I've been in a lot of systems, and I've worked for a lot of coaches, even though I was in one place for a long time. So the one reason you get to kind of stay in one place the whole time is that you are adaptable. And so I'd say that's probably been a strength of mine over my career, and really kind of hoping to build on that and then take the things that he wants to do and the whole staff wants to do. It's not just, Brian and Nick doing all this stuff. We got such a great staff that we're going to build in everybody's ideas.
So Nick Holtz, in another way, is a glue piece, right? Like if you are optimistic on this battery dynamic of Brian Callahan and Nick Holtz is the glue that can make everybody else's job feel more streamlined. And so I think there's negatives you can talk about the Nick Holtz press conference, very different. Jack, I think that if the Titans let Nick Holtz talk first and Denard Wilson second, then media and fans would not be so like, ooh, I don't know if this guy, like, how can this guy talk to a room because he's not as put together as Denard Wilson. It wouldn't feel so opposite if Holtz went first and Wilson went second. But because we just heard Denard Wilson drop General George Patton quotes and get us ready to run through a wall, and then you have Nick Holtz talk about, well, I'll defer to Brian on that question. It feels worse than maybe what it actually is.
That's the thing. Like, I don't have a problem with anything he said. I don't have a problem with him deferring to Brian Callahan because you know what? That's his job. His job is to literally defer to Brian Callahan. He went ahead and started it off at the press conference. I don't have a problem with what Nick Holtz said. I think that after, like you said, watching Denard Wilson and his passion and his fire, and he seems like an alpha male, and then you go to Nick Holtz, who doesn't seem like he's that type of personality, which, by the way, can still work in this league. There are plenty of guys that are head coaches that aren't alpha males. Look at Miami. Look across the league at some of the offensive head coaches. They're not exactly, cold-blooded killers when they speak. But that's still okay as long as you can run an offense that works and execute that offense with your talent that you have at your disposal. So I don't have a problem with Nick Holtz's press conference, but it does make him look worse speaking after Denard Wilson got to go and got to fire the whole room up, ahead of him. So,
yep, no doubt about that. All right, so Jack, let's ask our question to the chat here about Nick Holtz. How do you feel about Titans OC Nick Holtz after his press conference? We'll give you three options. You feel better about him, the same about him, or worse? Better, the same, or worse about the Nick Holtz hire as Titans offensive coordinator after his press conference. So we'll get to everybody's comments here in the chat, but got to tell you all about our friends at Farm Bureau Health Plans. We're guys, we are signed up with year 3 with Farm Bureau Health Plans. So that relationship with Farm Bureau Health Plans, very valuable to everybody involved. And so we're excited about that overall with Farm Bureau Health Plans because they do a phenomenal job of serving the community that is the entire state of Tennessee through relationships like theirs with A to Z Sports and with the Tennessee Titans, with colleges and universities across the state, as well as youth sports leagues and high schools too, because Farm Bureau Health Plans is here to serve you. It's here to serve us as Tennesseans. They've been doing it for 75 plus years, and they have all the resources to make it easy, 200 plus locations, and an easy way to get a quote to make your health coverage better. Get a better health plan with Farm Bureau Health Plans and get started by visiting our link, fbhp.com/ATOZ.
Visit betmgm.com. Use our bonus code that you see on your screen right in front of you, A to Z Sports, and you'll receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses. Start off on the right foot. Get in the action with some NBA tonight. Get in the action with some NHL. You've got college baseball coming up. You've got March Madness on the horizon. You want to get your sea legs under you before that big tournament gets going so you can win some big money in March. Do it on BetMGM. Plug in our bonus code A to Z Sports. Get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses.
All right, so Jack, I've asked the question. I'll send you to the chat. How do you feel about Titans OC Nick Holtz after his press conference? Better, the same, or worse? And if you do pick the same, then we kind of need to know where you were. A lot of people low. Sam did his new hire coaching rankings, and Nick Holtz was 12th out of 12. Denard Wilson was second, I believe, behind only Bill Callahan. That list is on A2Zsports.com. So, Jack, I'll send you the chat. Better, worse, or same about Nick Holtz?
Yeah, so Clayton, Mikey, Brad, Eric, IR Hoshi, all says same. Richie says worse. Steven says same. Biggie, first better. We've got same from Nate's Burner and Scott and Billy and Curtis and Steve. Denise agrees. Worse, says Brandon. Same from Matt and Zach and hello, ladies. Better from Patrick and Caleb. Johnny says same. Darren says, the thing in today's league on offense is not tough guys anymore. It's the thinking man's game now, which is actually a really good comment from Darren Lee, even though it doesn't address the question. Brandon says same. Titans Kyle says, all jokes aside, he feels the same. Mike Peck agrees. Esco says he feels worse. Top tier says same. Jason says he feels better. So does Jameson. Justin said he's irrelevant because it's Brian's show to run. CJ says same. Michael says worse. Danny says same. So does Jody. Darius says better. He's not doing much. LOL. Ken says meh. I think that's a good spot to leave it at. Austin, I don't know that I feel better or worse after hearing him speak because, there wasn't one thing that he said that fired me up. There wasn't one thing that he said that made me feel worse about how I already felt about Nick Holtz. Like I feel like he's a needed piece on this staff because look, the Titans offensive coordinators that have worked in the past, Arthur Smith, Mike Heimerdinger, those are dudes that take full control. And those are dudes that also coached under defensive minded head coaches where an alpha in the room on offense was needed. Well, your alpha on the offensive side of the ball is Brian Callahan. You've already got that. So you don't need two guys that have a potential to clash. Like a lot of people, including me, fantasize about the idea of bringing Arthur Smith back to be the offensive coordinator here. Well, when you have a guy who calls the plays in Brian Callahan, having another dude who's done that before and had success, kind of looking over your shoulder at all times, might not make Callahan feel that comfortable in what he's doing. And now that shouldn't affect the game that you call or the work that you do, but it could affect, some stuff behind the scenes in the building. And Nick Holtz is going to be a guy that, he fits right into his hole. He's a puzzle piece that fits into the puzzle, and surrounding him with guys of decades upon decades upon decades of experience, like a Bill Callahan, like a Tyke Tolbert, is only going to make him better as an offensive coordinator. It's a role that he's going to grow into and develop in, as a coach himself. So I think watching him grow in that role is going to be fun. Having a guy that's like-minded with Brian Callahan who knows what works on offense is great. And I think the structure that Callahan has already put in place is beneficial to Holtz and this staff as a whole. Look, Brian Callahan, when he was hired in Cincinnati, probably, not a lot of people probably thought a whole lot of Brian Callahan, other than that his dad coached in the NFL. But
yeah,
he worked in that system and that structure, and since that worked, he's going to install it here. And Holtz is going to fill the Callahan role. And look, if Holtz has any questions, who better to ask how to fill this role than Brian Callahan, who just worked in it for 5 years? So I think that he's a good fit. I don't think it's a home run hire. I don't think that his press conference was a disaster like a lot of people think it was. So I'm kind of in the middle, and I guess I have to say that I feel the same about the hire.
The same. Okay. So I think I feel better about it, Jack.
Look, if I'm going one way or another, I do feel better than worse, but there's just not a whole lot that moved the needle for me. It's nice to know where he stands and how he fits.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a whole lot there to make me feel one way or another.
Like last night, I was thinking, man, this is interesting. I don't know how well this is going to work. Like, is Nick Holtz going to be able to actually fill the role? Because that press conference was not good. Like, rarely can you lose a press conference. You can either win a press conference or just have a press conference. Like, I feel like I feel like Nick Holtz lost the press conference with how he came across because of what we saw right before with Denard Wilson. And so I think why I feel better about it is because I think I have a better understanding of the role that Nick Holtz is playing. And I do think there's value in that. And Brian Callahan came out and said it. We played it earlier that he's trying to recreate the same dynamic he had with Zach Taylor for 5 years because he knows it worked and he knows how to have it work. And Nick Holtz can play that role for him and they can work with it together. Like you mentioned that people probably didn't feel good about the Brian Callahan OC hire for Zach Taylor. I mean, Jack, you probably remember this. Zach Taylor was criticized as a hire because he was never a coordinator. Like Zach Taylor was the Rams quarterback coach. And when he was hired by the Bengals as a head coach from a quarterback coach, people were going like, oh God, everybody's just trying to do anything to get Sean McVay something. This guy hadn't even been a coordinator yet. Now he's a head coach. And then you hire a quarterback coach in Callahan to be the OC for a quarterback coach turned head coach. It felt like they were skipping a level there. I still feel like Nick Holtz is skipping a level. And I still feel my initial thought is that nobody else in the NFL is hiring Nick Holtz as an offensive coordinator besides Brian Callahan. But maybe Brian Callahan is just him and Zach Taylor are the ones that are setting up their offensive-minded head coach, offensive coordinator unit this way. And so I feel better about it, even if I still question it. But I obviously, like the commenter said earlier, if the offense sucks, it's Brian Callahan's fault. It's not Nick Holtz's fault. And that's something we have to remember because doesn't it feel like yesterday Kyle Shanahan made Steve Wilks the fall guy? Like doesn't the firing of Niners D coordinator Steve Wilks feel like Kyle Shanahan's fall guy move? We established this. Brian Callahan's the offensive guy. Nick Holtz is doing what Brian Callahan wants him to do. So Nick Holtz should not become a fall guy for Brian Callahan if it's not working, because that's not what they're setting up.
Yeah, no, you're right. And the only situation I could see him turning into that, and look, this is way down the road, and this is super hypothetical, but if things aren't working on offense and Callahan is forced to make a change, it would make sense to get rid of Nick Holtz and bring in a guy like an Arthur Smith type who has experience calling plays, and then relinquish your control as a head coach to him. But I think what makes Brian Callahan so attractive as a head coach is, what he can do with the play calling sheet. And that's why I don't think, like you said, that Holtz makes sense as a fall guy here. I don't think that you can scapegoat Holtz because his role isn't that significant in the grand scheme of things on offense. So I think that's a great point that you made.
All right, we got some super chats before we get to the magic bucket here. King VC comes in and says, Nick Holtz is not calling plays. I think his press conference demonstrated just that. I think I'm the same. I think if he were calling plays, it would be different. Yeah, I think everybody agrees. If Nick Holtz was the play caller, there would be a lot of like red flags, red alert, sound the alarms of like, I don't know about this, but that's not his role that King VC says. So that's a valid comment.
And, it is. I do think that Nick Holtz could be helped with a little more PR training, media training, whatever it is they do over there. Because, the highest role he's held in the NFL was passing game coordinator. How often do you hear your passing game coordinator get up there behind a microphone and speak? Like, this is his first time. This is high-pressure stuff for anybody, much less a guy who's never really had that platform before, in the NFL. So I think this was a tough moment. I'm not going to judge him based off his first press conference. Hell no, that's not fair. I'm going to judge him based on how he and Callahan work together. And look, we're going to hear more from Holtz. Holtz is going to be available like
every
often,
week.
like at practices, after games. You're going to hear a lot from him. So I do think he's going to get better in this, circumstance. But at the end of the day, I don't care what he sounds like. As long as the Titans offense is capable of scoring 30 points, I'm all good, man. But I do think that he could. I just want. I do think that he could benefit from some more experience up there behind him, Mike.
Yeah, for the love of football gods, just 30 points once, please. In the year 2024. Yeah. Rise Tolerance Super Chat says better for Nick Holtz. He's there to collaborate with Callie, and if all works out, he should be here a while keeping the continuity. Yes, that is ideally you have Nick Holtz be around with Callahan for 5 years, just like Callahan was there for Zach Taylor. And when that time comes, Brian Callahan's 5 years under his belt as a head coach and can go take the next Nick Holtz if Nick Holtz goes somewhere else and becomes the next Brian Callahan, right? So that's definitely a good comment there from Rise. And how about this, Jack? A little super chat shout out for you. Jack needs to be on the show a lot more. He always provides great insight and viewpoints based on the Titans move, personnel, and player roster. How do you feel about that comment there?
Well, thank you, Juan. That's very kind of you to say. I'm going to have to read your comments from here on out, every single one of them after that super chat.
Pandering.
I appreciate the kind words. Pandering to Jack. That's what we need more of here.
More pandering to Jack, for sure. All right. Yeah. Hey, look, there you go. David says Jack 100.
There we go.
To address this, because a lot of people brought this up. Who were the reporters going at it? And so I talked to Sam yesterday about this. Everybody who was watching or listening to the press conference heard it during Nick Holtz. I do not know one of the individuals personally at all, never met them. So I will not, it's not my place. I am not there day to day. I have not been to a Titans media availability since August because that's not my role with A to Z. Paul Kaharski was there and involved in that. Paul Kaharski, in my opinion, is not the wrong party in the situation. So for everybody, suspect PK. I do not think that Paul is the wrong one in this. And, but that's what I will say. I'll leave it at that because that's not my place anymore. I'm not in that realm. It's not my work area. It is Sam's work area. And so if Sam wants to talk about it more, he can, but I don't think he will because we discussed that yesterday.
So are you pulling in Nick Holtz and deferring to Sam?
I will defer to Sam.
Okay, cool. Oh, good stuff. Good stuff.
Yes. All right. Jack, I will have to teach you how to tie. And we'll do that right now with the Magic Bucket. Shout out to Wilson County Hyundai, wilsoncountyhyundai.com. Make them a part of your new car buying process. So see them in Lebanon or check them out online, wilsoncountyhyundai.com. Man, when you came back, I didn't know where you went. I was like, wait, where'd he go? The transition played and you were gone.
I had to go get my tie. Look, Titans colored tie. You know I got that.
Yeah. So I am left-handed. So this might be backwards for you. So
Great.
I try to do it. Let's see. I will try to
I think this makes it more fun.
Okay. So I have the long or the wide spot in my right hand.
Got it.
And I have the other one in my left, right? Is that how you are?
Correct. Yeah. We're on the same page.
All right. So you need the short end to be, right below your ribs, around that. It depends on how long your torso is. Like Jack,
a lot of people say I've got a swimmer's body. So, okay.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
Jack's got a torso. Jack's got that long torso. So you might need it to be a little shorter than your ribs so you can have a longer tie. So you don't have short tie syndrome on the gut there. So,
Okay.
All right. So you take your, this is so weird because in my screen, it's backwards. So it's not like a mirror. So you take your wide spot and you go over the short.
Right. Up here, I guess.
Up here. Yeah. Then you go under there and you pull that all the way around. Then you're going to toss it over your hand. Whoop. Just like that. Right.
Bang.
And now you could stop here or you could go double and you could flip it one more time. And now, now you go, so now I've got my thick side in my left hand.
Okay.
Right?
Same.
Now you're going to go down and you're going to go up through between your neck there, but you want the outside, the inside tag showing.
Okay.
And you pull it up, you pull that all the way through. And now you're going to take the tip and go through the last fold.
This is going to be hilarious.
Then you're going to pull that through. And now you got to just tighten it up. And by pulling your wide spot. And this is going to be the worst tie that I've ever tied because I'm not looking in a mirror. I'm looking at a reflection, which makes this very difficult.
All right, so I'll show you how it came out. Did not come out well, but look, there's a knot at the top, and that's progress.
Yeah, so it's the worst tie ever tied known to man. And yours is way too short.
Backwards, too short. Look, we tried. That's all we
Mine
could
is at least the correct length. But that there you go. So you probably, with your long torso, do not need to do the second loop unless you go get a long tie.
You're right. You're right.
All right.
I feel like I could do it with the right size tie, standing up maybe in front of a mirror, but
The
sitting
mirror is
down-
everything, because if you don't have a mirror, then that was a very odd thing to watch there. All right, so new for the bucket today, and Jack gets to go wash off his cross after the show here. So this is for me. All right. Ooh, Jack, you've done this. I get to do this now. So get your phone ready for a clock.
Okay, I got one on my computer.
All right. I need 30 seconds on the clock, and I have to name as many Super Bowl MVPs as I can in 30 seconds. So you will let me know when your clock's ready.
I'm pulling up the list of Super Bowl MVPs to fact check.
Okay.
Okay, we've got them. All right.
All right, you
I'm
start
ready
the
when
clock
you go.
on my first name.
Cool.
Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Matthew Stafford, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Ben Roethlisberger, no. Hines Ward, no. Dexter Jackson, Kurt Warner, Malcolm Smith.
Your time is up. Your time is up. Malcolm Smith was your last one. So you got 11. You said 11 names. You got 10 of them right because Matthew Stafford does not have a Super Bowl MVP. Remember, that went to Cooper Kupp.
Cooper Kupp, damn it.
10 Super Bowl MVPs in 30 seconds is pretty good. Let's see, Brett Favre.
Especially when like Mahomes is three of the more recent ones.
You know, I'm not so sure that Brett Favre has one either. Yeah, Brett Favre does not appear to have one. No Brett Favre. So 9, which is still good. Still pretty strong.
Not good enough. I need double digits on that. Desmond Howard was that Packers Super Bowl. Yeah, it was Desmond Howard. All right, here we go. Ready? This is for Jack. Ooh. This is like a great show topic. So this is what you're going to do, because this is what next Thursday's show is going to be, Jack. It's perfect.
Okay. All right.
You are the Titans GM for one day. What are 3 moves you would make?
Oh, boy.
So now this is what we're going to do, because this is phenomenal. This is perfect. So next Thursday on the show, you will present us with your top 3 things that you would do if you were Rand Carthon this offseason.
So not today. We're saving it.
So this is for Thursday, next Thursday. We've already got the show planned. It's all on you. And now you've got a week to get this thing ready to pitch to me and to everybody here of the top 3 things that Rand Carthon must do, or that you would do if you were Rand Carthon.
Oh, yeah. I like this one a whole lot. I like it. By the way, this reminds me of a rant that I had at the end of the Tighten Up podcast, which is out now. Y'all should listen to it. T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, Mike Vrabel's looking at Wisconsin, all kinds of different stuff we cover. Very fun episode. Listen to it as soon as you're done watching the morning show. But to end the show here, my rant, why do Titans fans not want the team to spend every last cent that they have? I hate people that want to pinch pennies and the salary cap that are just fans. It's not your money to spend, buddy. Like, let's go ahead and spend it all. Let's get as good as we can get. Bring in everybody we can bring in. You should want to spend. You should not want to save as a fan. That's my rant.
I do. I co-sign that. When people are like, no, don't spend that. It's not your money.
He's too much money. I don't care. Let him spend it. It's not
That is very
mine.
fun.
I don't have to pay taxes on it. I don't have to pinch pennies for the next week to go to the grocery store. That's their prerogative. Let them spend as much as their little hearts desire.
I co-sign that. All right. Great way to end this Thursday. We've got next Thursday's show planned already. Hey, great stuff here from Denard Wilson and about Nick Holtz. So I know that Buck Rising has an article coming out about play calling here soon on A2ZSports.com on our socials. Buck will also be live tonight for A to Z Sports Primetime, so you can check that out. We need more likes on the show. We've done better, but if you're watching and you haven't liked the show yet on Facebook or YouTube, do that now. Hit that thumbs up button. It goes a long way for us, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow morning on a Friday. Appreciate it as always.